Hello, everyone. This is how we'll be doing services for a while. For any of you tuning in, I'm the Reverend Arthur Lavoie from First Parish in Plymouth, Unitarian Universalist. And I want to start the service today with our call to worship and chalice lighting. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom, Spirit of love. Our reading today comes from the Reverend Victoria Safford in her article called Desert Spring. They had no idea where they were going when they left that night in the dark, without lights, without shoes, without bread, their children smothered against them so they would make no noise. They had no idea what they were getting into, following this Moses, this wild-eyed one who claimed visions and made promises, but who, after all, could guarantee them nothing except death if they were caught. They went into the wilderness. There they wandered for 40 years, which in those days was a lifetime. 40 was a good old age, so many of them died before getting anywhere, and many were born in the desert and grew into adulthood, knowing nothing but the journey, not slavery, not freedom, just the going. They complained and whined and muttered, and some mutinied, for they were a stiff-necked and rebellious people, ungrateful people. Even when manna rained down from heaven and quails were sent to feed them. Unhappy people longing out loud even for the familiar security of Egypt, of all places, where at least they knew what to expect, as awful as it was. Impatient people, making cheap little idols and gods of metal to bargain with in secret when the traveling got hard or merely dull, and the days and the years became monotonous. Whatever has happened to us, the Israelite people must have thought as they wandered through the desert. Their ancestor Joseph had been a trusted advisor to Pharaoh and had saved Egypt from famine several generations ago. And the whole clan had then moved to Egypt. Then came slavery. No longer in positions of power or influence, they toiled unceasingly on Pharaoh's massive building projects. Whatever has happened to us, we are now thinking. Unemployment was low, the stock market was going well. Most of us were happy with our lives and the promise of spring that we could feel in the air. And now this virus, COVID-19, is wreaking havoc on the world. Some of us have been laid off, and many are fearing that as well. The stock market appears to be bottoming out. We can't go to places or do the things we're used to doing. We may not yet know of anyone who is sick, but we're told this is coming with a vengeance, that some will die, and there is no end in sight. Since we are only a couple of weeks away from the celebration of Passover, I'm using the biblical story of Moses and the Israelite people wandering in the desert as a theme for this weekend's homily. To me, it feels like we are now wandering in a desert landscape, since so much of our lives and our routines have changed. We're not exactly sure how long we will be in this desert, and we don't yet know what is on the other side. The Israelites had this new leader, Moses, who had been raised in Pharaoh's court but claimed to be one of them. He said he would lead them from slavery back to the land of their forebears, a land flowing with milk and honey, a land they could claim as their own. But some weren't sure. They must have thought this Moses was a little crazy. After all, he said that God spoke to him from a bush that was on fire but not consumed by the flames. Really? God hadn't spoken directly to anyone since Abraham. Who is this Moses that God should speak to him? We too have various leaders saying sometimes different, sometimes confusing, sometimes contradictory things. Like the Israelites, we worry that some of them are a bit crazy and self-serving. We know the situation is dire, but we're not quite sure who to trust. It appears that it will get worse before it gets better. Whatever clarity, community, and peace of mind we had last month or the month before has for many of us been altered or shattered in some way. So here we are, as they were, lost in a desert. No promised land in sight. We don't know how long we'll be wandering here. Some are saying 18 months to 2 years, which seems like a lifetime. We can't go back to what was most familiar, and we're not sure how to push on in this murky unknown. The journey we choose is not always the journey we get. We get lost or waylaid, or sometimes we lose ourselves along the way. And we don't always end up where we think we're going or in the time frame we had projected. The same is true for us today as it was for the people of ancient Israel or people throughout the ages. And when this happens to us, what promises do we make to whatever are our gods and holy idols in order to get us through these hard times? But we must remember that even the desert landscape can be beautiful, and there are things that bring us support and comfort and hope in the midst of our struggles. You know, today I saw forsythia blooming along the hillside between the Parish house and the meeting house. And there are a pair of cardinals up on that hill singing their sweet song. I've had a chance to have in-depth conversations with some old friends and have a few more I plan to contact. Those signs of life and hope renew my spirit all of the time. Once we've experienced the journey, we are different. We will be different. We will be changed somehow by the experience. We may try, or think we can try, to return to our previous place of unknowing. But the past that we left behind, no matter how comfortable and appealing, will not ever exist. And if we let ourselves be transformed by this process, if we continue to move forward, we can emerge into a place of deeper understanding and peace. Parker Palmer, in his book, Let Your Life Speak, writes about one such time when he was facing a vocational crisis and went to a Quaker retreat house for an extended time of reflection. It was his expectation to resolve his crisis there. He writes, When I arrived and started sharing my vocational quandary, people responded with a traditional Quaker counsel that, despite their good intentions, left me even more discouraged. Have faith, they said, and way will open. I have faith, I thought to myself. What I don't have is time to wait for a way to open. After a few months of deepening frustration, he took his troubles to an older Quaker woman, well known for her thoughtfulness and candor. "Ruth," he said, "people keep telling me that way will open. Well, I sit in silence, I pray, I listen for my calling, but way is not opening. I've been trying to find my vocation for a long time, and I still don't have the foggiest idea of what I'm meant to do. Way may be opening for other people, but it's sure not opening for me." Ruth replied and told him that she was a birthright friend, which is another word for Quaker. And in 60-plus years of living, she said, "Way has never opened in front of me." She paused. Parker Palmer started sinking into despair. He wondered if that wise Quaker woman was telling him that the Quaker concept of God's guidance was a hoax. Then she smiled and spoke again. "But she said, "a lot of way has closed behind me, and that has had the same guiding effect." "I laughed with her," he says, "laughed loud and long, the kind of laughter that comes when a simple truth exposes your heart for the needlessly neurotic mess it can sometimes become." The truth that Parker Palmer found that day is probably true for all of us as well. On life's journey, we learned there is as much guidance in what does not and cannot happen in life as there is in what can and does, maybe more. Today, I think we have certainty that spring will come and that the days will get longer and warmer, that the flowers and trees will return to life. Today, we have certainty that though we may not be able to see each other in person, those we love are there for us to help comfort our sorrows and share our joys. Today, we have certainty that we are held in loving embrace by the Spirit of life, the light of the universe, the God of our understanding. As we go forward on this desert journey, may we not become impatient with the process, however uncertain, and may we remain safe in our homes and limited circles. May we fill the monotony of what we face with deeper reflection and connection, talking virtually or by phone with those we are close to, rekindling old friendships, reading that book we've been meaning to read, or completing a home project that we just haven't had a chance to get to. Pharaohs, come in different forms. Some of them are external to us, like a virus or an autocratic leader, and some are within. The fear, oppression, and the confusion will linger within us. The task of the journey is to move through the fire of the chaos and uncertainty until we clear ourselves of the baggage that we carry within, until what remains is the hope and the promise of who we might become. Victoria Safford's essay, most of which was read earlier, ends with the following paragraph. In the springtime, we remember the promised land is not a destination, it is a way of going. The land beyond the Jordan, that country of freedom and dignity and laughter you carry inside you all the while. It is planted in your mind and heart already, before you even start out, before it even occurs to you that in order to leave that life in Egypt, the intolerable bondage of that life, what you need to do is stand up and walk forward. What we need to do today, I think, is to move forward. The journey itself is the way. It is the land of promise. If we live that journey with openness and honesty and integrity, then we will embody the presence of the holy, and all, even the most difficult and painful passages, will lead us to some understanding, connection, freedom, and peace. Amen, and blessed be.